When it comes to leagues like the NBA, you know that one of the goals of most players is to go and get appreciated for the work that they do. And by that, we don't just mean getting named the player of the game or have your highlights and such shown on SportsCenter. We mean getting paid. Because if you are able to showcase just how good you are on the court in a significant and consistent fashion, you'll get a contract that has a lot of zeros on the end of the salary and be very happy. And for one Denver Nuggets player, he's definitely very happy. So allow us to show you how the Nuggets signed Michael Porter Jr. to a 5-year max extension. Number 4, the deal. The Nuggets and forward Michael Porter Jr. have reached an agreement on a 5-year contract extension worth the maximum salary. Agent Mark Bartelstein tells ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Now, the deal currently projects to be worth $172.5 million, based on the NBA's projection of a $119 million salary cap for the 2022-2023 season. However, the contract will include Rose Rule language, allowing Porter to potentially earn 30% of the cap in the first year of the extension, rather than 25% of the cap if he makes an All-NBA team in 2021-2022. Now, in that scenario, the 5-year contract would be worth a projected $207 million. Either way you look at it, though, that is a lot of money. The 5th year of Porter's contract will be partially guaranteed, according to Ryan McDonough of Odyssey Sports, who reports via Twitter that MPJ's 5th-year salary would become fully guaranteed if he meets certain lofty performance benchmarks. The Nuggets' investment signals how far the former 14th overall pick has come since missing his entire rookie season in 2018-2019 due to a back injury. After playing a modest role in 2019-2020, Porter became a key piece for Denver last season, averaging 19 points per game and 7.3 rebounds per game, with an impressive .542, .445, and .791 shooting line in 61 games. Now, Porter still has plenty of room to improve on the defensive side of the ball, but the 23-year-old has displayed the potential to become one of the NBA's very best scorers, so there was no chance the Nuggets would let him get away, especially with the Western Conference being rather stacked right now, and they don't want to miss their chance to compete. With extensions for Porter and Aaron Gordon completed this offseason, the Nuggets roster is very expensive. The newly extended forwards won't even be Denver's highest-paid players. Nope, that honor belongs to veteran stars Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who are earning a combined $60 million in 2021-2022. As Bobby Marks of ESPN tweets, the Nuggets project to carry about $156 million in team salary for the 2022-2023 campaign and are on track to be a taxpayer for the first time in over a decade. The team remains below the tax line for the 2021-2022 season. Porter's deal is the 4th maximum salary rookie scale extension to be finalized this offseason, with the Nuggets forward joining Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So he's in good company, especially when you consider the star power of Doncic and Young currently. That being said, there is an issue that does need to be addressed, as Michael Porter Jr. is part of a certain crowd, which might cause some trouble for the Nuggets going forward this season. Number 3, vaccine. Michael Porter Jr. is basically one of the wingmen to current MVP Nikola Jokic. However, the NBA is trying to crack down on a very specific thing right now: COVID exposure, to the extent that the league is flirting with a rule that'll make it to where if you don't have the vaccine, you can't play in areas that require the vaccine to be indoors. Say like New York City or Brooklyn. Why does this matter? Well, Michael Porter Jr. is someone who is on the anti-vax list, and as one reporter noted, he believes he can work through it without needing the vaccine. Michael Porter Jr. made his stance clear in that he's not comfortable taking the vaccine. Given that he's had COVID twice, his logic was that he knows how his body handled it and doesn't know how it would react to the vaccine. The unspoken part, of course, is that it's impossible to know how he'd react to the new Delta variant. While it is a personal choice, the other unspoken aspect is that said personal choice can have a big impact on the rest of the team. If Porter tests positive again, or even if he's had a close exposure, he will need to quarantine because he's unvaccinated. A close exposure for a vaccinated player doesn't mandate a quarantine. So while I believe each player is entitled to their choice, each unvaccinated player needs to reconcile the personal versus team impact. What's Denver's margin for error until Jamal Murray returns, and can it withstand missing games from MPJ? The NBA has implemented rigorous testing and different protocols for unvaccinated players, which could ostensibly change a player's mind. While that player might want to respect the player's choice, we have a different feeling on the matter. Mainly in that there's so much foolishness and misinformation about the vaccine that it's clouding the issue that is right in front of us. Especially with the Delta variant out there, people, and especially stars and athletes, need to get the vaccine so that they don't spread it to others that they're literally in close contact with almost every single day. Plus, while he may have survived COVID twice, that doesn't mean that he'll do it a third time. Or worse, he'll get it and then give it to someone else who won't be able to tolerate it like he claims he can. There's a real potential for Michael Porter Jr. to miss a lot of games this season, depending on where they play, and thus the team might be in more trouble down the road than they are right now, with certain pieces not being fully in place at present. If he does care for his team, he would get the vaccine, but whether he will or not remains to be seen. The team might have to step in through depending on how things shake out, because the Western Conference is no joke this season. Number 2, Western Woes. Regardless of who's in and who's out, and just as importantly, who's injured or not, the Denver Nuggets are going to have an incredibly hard test on their hands. Why is that? Well, the Western Conference is arguably more stacked than it's been in a while in various ways. It is true that in the bubble playoffs, they went to the Eastern Conference Final and gave the Lakers a challenge, but it wasn't enough to advance. Fast forward to last year's playoffs, and they were injured so much they got swept in the second round. And now the landscape of the NBA has changed once again, and several teams on the Western Conference are stacking the decks to try and get back to glory. This includes the Lakers, who brought back several players from their championship team in the bubble playoffs, as well as getting Carmelo Anthony and Russell Westbrook to help out LeBron and AD. Then there's the Golden State Warriors, who seem to finally be ready to play at full power, pre-KD years of course, now that Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson are going to be presumably fully healed, fully rested, and ready to put their team back on the map and get a fourth title together. The Phoenix Suns want to go back to the finals. The Dallas Mavericks want a deep playoff run this go-around, and other teams want a piece of the action as well. So to some, their extension deals and the money that they're spending may seem a bit like an overreaction. They're doing their best to try to stack up against a conference that'll be pretty tough once the playoffs come around next year. And they know that if they aren't strong enough, they'll likely not even advance past the first round, which would definitely be considered a failed season given where they were just 2 playoffs ago. Number 1, doing what is right. Does this entirely fall onto the shoulders of Michael Porter Jr.? No, that would be unfair, as even LeBron James knows that one man doesn't make a full-on team. The catch, though, is that you need your key pieces in place to go and succeed. Just look at the Bucks and the Suns from the NBA Finals last year for proof of that. Or the Lakers and how they lost in the first round because AD was injured. If the Nuggets don't have both Jamal Murray due to injury and Michael Porter Jr. due to the vaccine mandate, they'll be relying more and more on Nikola Jokic and whoever is left on the roster at the time to try and pull something off. So by taking this anti-vax stance and saying he knows his body can handle it, he's putting his whole team at risk in regards to their success this season. Hopefully he'll realize that soon, but only time will tell. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at Michael Porter Jr., his contract extension, and what impact he's likely to have on the Denver Nuggets this year? Do you think he needs to get the vaccine to truly deserve what he's getting from the contract? Or do you think that he'll be stubborn about it like many others out there? What are your expectations for the Nuggets this year? Let us know in the comments below, be sure to subscribe, and we will see you next time on the channel.